A grieving mother is speaking out after her daughter was shot to death in Chicago's South Loop. Tina McMiller stood this morning near Cermak and State, the same spot where 31-year-old Romeca Meeks Blackman was shot and killed during a school drop-off on Monday. And she says her daughter was loving, supportive, and an amazing mother.
She loved her son. She loved me. She loved her siblings. And I loved her the same. I want justice. She didn't deserve it.
Leaders there also called for tougher action against violence and enforcement of House Bill 158. That's a state law that declares violence a public health crisis. No charges have been filed, but police had called the shooting domestic in nature.
She kissed her 5-year-old goodbye, slipped a love note in his lunchbox, and walked toward her car. 45 minutes later, Romeca Meeks Blackman was dead, shot in the face at point-blank range outside her son's elementary school. The killer? Released without charges that same day. Let that sink in for a moment. A mother. A school drop-off. A single gunshot in broad daylight. And the person who pulled the trigger walked free before sunset. This isn't a story about a random act of violence. This is about betrayal, layered, calculated, and deadly. 3 betrayals to be exact. First, her ex-partner's possessive behavior. Carlos Way couldn't let go. Even after their relationship ended, even after they agreed to co-parent peacefully for their son's sake, he kept showing up. The arguments, the public confrontations, the toxic entanglement that should have ended but never did. His inability to move on created a powder keg, and everyone around him was living on borrowed time. Second, the other woman. Quadajah Holly Johnson, the mother of Carlos's other child. Jealousy simmered beneath every custody exchange, every pickup. Every moment these 2 women had to exist in the same orbit because of one man. Rumors swirled about infidelity, about who Carlos really wanted, about who deserved what. And on September 8, 2025, that jealousy manifested in the most horrific way imaginable. She pulled a gun from her purse and fired, once, into Romeca's face. No warning. No mercy. Just execution. And third, the Chicago Police Department let her go. Same day. No charges filed. Despite witnesses, despite the weapon, despite a mother lying dead on a sidewalk outside an elementary school while children were inside learning their ABCs. They called it insufficient evidence and sent Quadajah Holly Johnson home. Think about that contrast for a second. On one side you have Romeca Meeks Blackman, affectionately called Big Meeks by everyone who loved her. A 31-year-old single mother grinding through nursing school, working caregiver shifts, braiding hair on the side for extra cash. A woman who woke up before dawn every single day to pack lunches with handwritten notes that said, "Have an amazing day, my king. Mommy loves you forever." A woman whose entire world revolved around giving her son a better life. And on the other side, the school zone. A place that's supposed to be sacred. Safe. Where parents should only worry about permission slips and parent-teacher conferences, not whether they'll make it back to their car alive. But that's exactly what happened. Romeca's final act of love, dropping her boy off at school, became the moment someone decided she didn't deserve to live anymore. Before we dive deeper into this story, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to uncover will show you exactly how the justice system failed a black mother who was just trying to find peace. The twists in this case. You won't believe them. This is the story of Romeca Meeks Blackman and Quadajah Holly Johnson, 2 women tied to one man, whose simmering family drama exploded into Chicago's 300th homicide of 2025. A custody dispute that became a death sentence. A co-parenting arrangement that ended in cold-blooded murder. And a city that let the killer walk free. Let's uncover who they really were, what led to that fatal morning, and why Romeca's family is still fighting for justice months later. First, Romeca wasn't just another statistic. Born September 28, 1993 on Chicago's South Side, she was affectionately called Big Meeks, not for her size but her enormous heart. Romeca grew up in Englewood, one of Chicago's most resilient yet challenging neighborhoods. Raised by her mother, Tina McMiller, in a working-class household where love was abundant even when money wasn't. Tina worked in community services, instilling in Romeca a deep sense of responsibility to lift others up. That value became Romeca's North Star. From childhood, Romeca was the kid organizing games for younger children on cracked sidewalks, sharing snacks from her lunch, mediating squabbles with wisdom beyond her years. Family gatherings at Tina's modest home, the smell of collard greens and cornbread filling the air, were Romeca's safe haven. Thanksgiving tables surrounded by aunts, uncles, and cousins like Ciardra Bays, who later described her as the glue that held us laughing through the hard times. By 31, Romeca was wearing multiple hats with grace. She was a single mother to a bright-eyed 5-year-old boy born in late 2019, her little king, as she called him. She was a nursing student at a Chicago community college, chasing a dream that had been years in the making. And she was a caregiver working shifts at a healthcare facility to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Her daily routine was a testament to her dedication. Romeca woke before dawn, packing lunches with handwritten notes that said things like, "You got this, champ. Love, Mommy." She'd drive her son to school with the radio blasting, singing along to make him laugh. After drop-off came her caregiver shifts in those familiar scrubs, her armor for the day. Evenings meant textbook study sessions at the kitchen table while her son did homework beside her. And when money got tight, she braided hair on weekends, her side hustle to stretch every dollar. Romeca attended church regularly, finding solace in the choir's harmonies when life felt overwhelming. Her mother's mantra echoed in everything she did: "We rise by lifting others." She organized family events, mediated disputes with humor, and spoiled her nieces with braids and bedtime stories. She was on the cusp of transformation. Graduation was within reach. A stable nursing career meant security for her boy and honoring Tina's sacrifices. Her modest walk-up apartment in West Englewood was covered in her son's artwork. A home built on love, not luxury. Drop a praying hands emoji in the comments if you know a single mother juggling school, work, and raising kids alone. Romeca was doing all that and more, fighting to build a better future one day at a time. But Romeca's journey wasn't happening in isolation. She was tied to two other people whose presence would ultimately cost her everything. Enter Carlos Way, the father of her 5-year-old son. They shared custody, but the arrangement was anything but simple. Carlos was possessive in ways that made co-parenting tense. Friends and family witnessed his behavior, showing up unannounced, creating scenes during exchanges, arguing publicly about visitation. Romeca had made a deliberate choice to end their deeper romantic involvement because she recognized the toxicity. She wanted to protect her son from the drama. So she maintained co-parenting for peace, keeping interactions brief and boundaries firm, or at least trying to. "Mama, I just want peace for us," she confided to Tina during one of their daily phone calls. But peace was becoming harder to maintain. Then there was Quadajah Holly Johnson, 28 years old, the mother of Carlos's other child. She and Romeca existed in the same orbit solely because of him, a man who couldn't seem to let either woman go. And that proximity bred resentment. From the outside, Romeca kept it cordial. She dropped her son off for Carlos's time. She showed up to exchanges without making scenes. She kept the drama away from her boy as much as humanly possible. But beneath the surface, jealousy festered. Accusations flew. Old wounds never healed. Johnson's resentment centered on questions that had no good answers. Who did Carlos really want? Who was getting more time with him? Who deserved what? Infidelity rumors swirled, whispers that Carlos still had feelings for Romeca, that he favored their son over Johnson's child. Every custody exchange became an emotional minefield. Every pickup dripped with unspoken tension. Carlos's possessive behavior didn't help. The arguments escalated. What started as curt text messages turned into shouting matches in public spaces. Johnson began to view Romeca not as a co-parent navigating the same messy situation, but as competition, a threat. Someone standing between her and the life she thought she deserved. 3 people tied to one child. Old feelings colliding with new tensions. Custody battles transforming into emotional battlegrounds where logic had no place and pride ruled everything. Somewhere between co-parenting texts and school pickups, the pressure was building. The fuse was lit. And on September 8, 2025, everything was about to explode in the worst way imaginable. It's not clear exactly when things turned toxic, but according to family and witnesses, the drama between Romeca, Carlos, and Quadajah had been building for months. At the heart of it was an impossible situation. 2 women co-parenting with the same man, forced into each other's lives whether they wanted to be or not. Johnson and Romeca weren't friends. They weren't allies. They were rivals in a game neither had chosen to play, competing for time, attention, and control in a shared custody arrangement that felt more like a battlefield than a parenting plan. The jealousy was palpable. Johnson resented the time Carlos spent with Romeca during exchanges. She questioned every interaction, reading meaning into brief conversations and lingering glances. Rumors began circulating, whispers that Carlos still had feelings for Romeca, that their connection went deeper than co-parenting required. Whether those rumors had any truth didn't matter. Johnson believed them, and that belief poisoned everything. Then came the accusations of infidelity. Who was sleeping with whom? Who was crossing boundaries? The questions hung in the air during every pickup, every drop-off, every moment these three people had to occupy the same space. Romeca tried to stay above it. She confided in Tina during their daily calls, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Mama, I just want peace for us." She wasn't interested in drama. She didn't want to compete. Her only goal was keeping her son safe from the adult chaos swirling around him. But Carlos made peace impossible. His possessive behavior kept the flames burning. He showed up unannounced at Romeca's apartment. He created scenes during custody exchanges, his voice rising in parking lots and on street corners. He refused to respect the boundaries Romeca tried to establish, treating her attempts at distance as rejection that needed to be challenged. And Johnson? She watched all of this with mounting resentment. Every time Carlos showed up uninvited at Romeca's door, it confirmed her worst fears. Every argument between them felt like proof that Romeca still held power over him. The perceived slights accumulated, small moments that Johnson twisted into evidence of betrayal. The core question poisoning everything was simple but devastating. Who gets the kids? Not just physical custody but emotional priority. Whose child mattered more? Whose needs came first? The competition was unspoken but undeniable, and it was tearing all three of them apart. Witnesses to their interactions saw the writing on the wall long before September 8th. Verbal confrontations during pickups became routine. Accusations flew across parking lots. Johnson would snap about schedules and slights. Carlos would position himself between the two women, sometimes defending Romeca, sometimes throwing fuel on the fire. The exchanges that should have taken 5 minutes stretched into 20, 30, 45, each one a powder keg waiting for a spark. People who knew Romeca saw the toll it was taking. She confided in friends about the stress, admitting that she feared where things were headed. "I just want to move on," she told one close friend over coffee. "But every time I think it's over, something pulls me back in." The unspoken danger hung over everything. Chicago was drowning in violence in 2025. By fall, the city had recorded over 300 homicides. Domestic cases, situations exactly like Romeca's, comprised 40% of those murders. The statistics weren't abstract. They were lived reality in neighborhoods like Englewood and the South Loop, where gunfire punctuated summer nights and grief became routine. Romeca tried everything to protect herself. She kept interactions with Carlos brief, communicating mostly through text when possible. She focused on her son, reminding herself why boundaries mattered. She poured energy into her nursing studies, viewing graduation as an escape route, a way to build financial independence and move somewhere safer, somewhere the drama couldn't follow. But you can only control yourself. You can't control someone else's jealousy. You can't reason with resentment that's been festering for months. And you can't predict when words will turn into violence. Have you ever dealt with a toxic co-parenting situation? Or known someone trapped between keeping peace and protecting themselves? Drop your thoughts below, because this story shows exactly why those boundaries matter. Romeca did everything right. She tried to disengage. She prioritized her child. She set limits. And it still wasn't enough to save her life. September 8, 2025, started like any other Monday for Romeca. She woke before dawn as always. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of her moving through the kitchen, pulling out bread for sandwiches, slicing fruit, packing everything carefully into her son's lunchbox. Then came the note, written in her familiar handwriting, "Have an amazing day, my king. Mommy loves you forever." She tucked it inside where he'd find it at lunch, a small reminder that even when they were apart, her love surrounded him. By 8:45 a.m., she was dressed in her work scrubs. Simple, practical, the uniform of someone heading to another caregiver shift. Her hair was pulled back, her focus already shifting to the day ahead. Drop off work, maybe squeeze in some study time during her break. She pulled up to the elementary school near Cermak Road and State Street in Chicago's South Loop. The morning was crisp, the kind of fall day where the air smells clean and the sky stretches blue and endless. Romeca walked her son to the entrance, kissed his forehead, and watched him disappear inside with his classmates. Then she turned and headed back toward her car, parked curbside on South State Street. That's when she saw them. Carlos and Quadajah approaching together. The tension was immediate, crackling in the air like static before a lightning strike. Witnesses nearby noticed it too, the way their body language screamed confrontation, the way Romeca's posture shifted from relaxed to defensive in seconds. Something was wrong. Anyone watching could feel it. But by the time anyone thought to intervene, it was already too late. The ambush had been set. And Romeca Meeks Blackman had just walked into the last 60 seconds of her life. As Romeca walked back to her car at 8:45 a.m. September 8, 2025, in the 2200 block of South State Street, Carlos Way and Quadajah Holly Johnson confronted her. The verbal clash ignited immediately. Accusations of infidelity cut through the morning air. Custody barbs about who gets the kids flew like daggers. Old wounds that had never properly healed were ripped open in the middle of a school drop-off zone, with parents and children still milling about, with the everyday bustle of a Monday morning providing the backdrop for something unspeakable. Witnesses standing nearby described the escalation in chilling detail. Words flew fast and furious, voices rising, fingers pointing, the kind of argument that makes bystanders instinctively step back. The tension wasn't just palpable, it was suffocating. Then it escalated beyond words. Just physical contact. Bodies colliding in anger. Romeca stood her ground. She wasn't going to be intimidated. Not in front of her son's school. Not when she'd done nothing wrong except try to protect her peace and raise her child. She pushed back, defending herself the way any mother would when cornered. And that's when everything changed. In a moment that shattered the morning calm, Quadajah Holly Johnson reached into her purse and pulled out a handgun. Time seemed to freeze. The conversations happening around them. The traffic passing on State Street. The distant sound of children's voices from inside the school. All of it existed in a bubble that was about to burst. Johnson raised the weapon. Point-blank range. No hesitation. No warning. No last chance for Romeca to plead or run or shield herself. She fired once. The single gunshot cracked through the air like thunder, echoing off the buildings and pavement. The bullet struck Romeca directly in the face, hitting her cheek with devastating force. It severed arteries instantly. Shattered bone. Tore through tissue in a path so destructive that survival was never an option. Romeca collapsed to the sidewalk. Blood began pooling around her head, spreading across the concrete in a widening circle. Bystanders screamed. Some froze in shock, their minds unable to process what they'd just witnessed. Others immediately grabbed their phones, fingers shaking as they dialed 911. There's been a shooting. Outside the school. A woman's been shot. Please send help now. Romeca lay there gasping. Her phone still clutched in her hand. Her work scrubs, the one she'd put on that morning thinking about her shift, about her responsibilities, about the ordinary day ahead, now stained with her own blood. Her eyes fluttered. Her breaths grew shallow. Around her, chaos erupted. Parents grabbed their children and ran. Teachers rushed to lock down the building. Someone, a teacher who had been dropping off her own child, ran to Romeca's side and applied pressure to the wound, trying desperately to stem the bleeding even as she knew deep down that it was already too late. In the immediate aftermath, the scene descended into pandemonium. Carlos Way fled. He didn't check on Romeca. He didn't try to stop Johnson. He didn't wait for police. He simply ran, disappearing into the surrounding streets as sirens began wailing in the distance. Johnson. She calmly holstered her weapon, turned and walked away. No panic. No frantic sprint. She blended into the morning crowd with the composure of someone who'd just finished a routine errand, not someone who'd just executed a mother in broad daylight. Inside the school, staff acted quickly to shield children from the horror unfolding outside. Lockdown procedures activated. Doors bolted. Teachers pulled students away from windows, their voices steady even as their hands trembled. The little boy Romeca had just kissed goodbye sat in his classroom, unaware that his mother was dying steps away from where he was learning his letters. Paramedics arrived within minutes, their ambulance screaming up to the scene. They loaded Romeca onto a stretcher and rushed her to Stroger Hospital, where trauma teams were already waiting. But the bullet's path had been too devastating. The damage too catastrophic. At 9:45 a.m., exactly 1 hour after she'd kissed her son goodbye, Romeca Meeks Blackman was pronounced dead. The evidence left behind told the story of a life interrupted mid-motion. Her phone, still clutched in her hand, displayed unread text messages from Tina. Call me after drop-off, love. Inside the school, tucked into her son's lunchbox, was the note she'd written that morning. Have an amazing day, my king. Mommy loves you forever. Words meant to carry love through an ordinary day, now serving as a final message from a mother who would never pick him up again. Chicago police detained Quadajah Holly Johnson blocks away from the scene. They brought her in for questioning, collected her statement, reviewed the circumstances, and then they released her. Same day. No charges filed. The official reason? Insufficient evidence for probable cause. Witnesses were stunned. "We were all scared, heard the gunshot echo through the whole block," one parent told reporters. "It was a school zone. Children were everywhere. How does someone just walk away from that?" The gut punch that no one could reconcile. A mother doing the most ordinary loving thing, dropping her child at school, was executed in broad daylight. And her killer went home that night. Chicago Police Department's Area 3 detectives descended on the scene immediately after the shooting. They secured shell casings from the sidewalk. They took statements from witnesses who'd seen everything unfold. They coordinated the school lockdown, ensuring no children were in danger. By all appearances, they were doing their jobs. But then came the release. Quadajah Holly Johnson was freed on September 8, 2025, the same day she pulled the trigger. Despite multiple eyewitnesses who watched her fire the gun. Despite the fact that a woman lay dead on a sidewalk outside an elementary school. No charges were filed. The official explanation? Insufficient evidence for probable cause. The weapon, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, was never recovered. Johnson didn't have it on her when police detained her blocks away, and investigators couldn't locate it despite searching the area. Without the gun, without ballistics, they claimed they couldn't move forward. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office completed Romeca's autopsy quickly. The findings were unambiguous. Death by single gunshot wound to the face. Manner of death, homicide. There was no mystery about how she died or whether it was murder. The only question was whether anyone would be held accountable. The case was classified as domestic-related and remained open as of October 2025. But open didn't mean active. No arrests had been made. No charges had been filed. The investigation existed in a limbo that felt intentional to those watching. Chicago police claimed they were conducting an ongoing review of school camera footage and bystanders' phone videos. But weeks turned into months and still nothing happened. Critics didn't mince words. Community activists and legal advocates called it what it was: bias in gun violence cases involving black women. A two-tiered justice system where some victims matter more than others. Where a white woman shot in a wealthy neighborhood would have sparked immediate arrests. But a black mother killed in the South Loop became just another file gathering dust. Tina McMiller refused to let her daughter become a forgotten statistic. She filed formal complaints with Chicago police, demanding Johnson's immediate rearrest. She showed up at the precinct weekly, asking for updates that never came. And most heartbreakingly, she took on the role she never expected to play again, raising her 5-year-old grandson who'd been orphaned in an instant. The little boy shut down after his mother's death. He stopped talking much. Stopped playing the way he used to. Daily therapy sessions became part of his routine as counselors tried to help him process a trauma no child should ever experience. He drew pictures, crayons on construction paper, showing a woman with angel wings floating above clouds. "Mommy in heaven," he'd whisper when Tina asked about them. Romeca's cousin, Ciardra Bays, channeled her grief into action. On September 12, she organized a vigil at Englewood STEM High School, Romeca's alma mater. Hundreds of people showed up. They released pink, white, and silver balloons into the Chicago sky while chanting for justice. The hashtag Justice for Romeca began trending on TikTok, spreading Romeca's story beyond the city limits. A GoFundMe campaign raised $25,000 for funeral expenses and the grandson's ongoing care. The community poured out support, but money couldn't fill the void Romeca left behind. Tina's vow was unshakable: "We won't stop until she's avenged." She consulted with attorneys about filing a civil suit. She demanded the case be reopened with fresh investigators. And she made sure anyone with information knew where to call: 312-747-8382, or Crime Stoppers at 312-472-8477. Romeca's death marked Chicago's 300th homicide of 2025, a grim milestone in a year drowning in violence. Domestic cases like hers comprised 40% of the city's murders, a statistic that underscored how dangerous intimate partner conflicts had become. The tragedy felt even more cruel because of what Romeca was on the verge of achieving. She was months away from graduating nursing school. She would have healed people, saved lives, made a tangible difference. Now who's healing us? Tina asked through tears during a television interview. On September 17, People magazine published an article about the case, featuring a photo of the lunchbox note Romeca had written that final morning. The image went viral, capturing the nation's heartbreak, a mother's love frozen in time, her words outliving her. Activists seized on the case to demand enforcement of HB 158, a 2021 Illinois law treating violence as a public health crisis and mandating mental health resources for at-risk communities. Romeca Meeks Blackman leaves behind a 5-year-old son who will grow up without his mother's voice guiding him, without her notes tucked into his lunchbox, without her presence at graduations and birthdays and all the milestones she should have witnessed. He leaves behind memories of bedtime stories and silly kitchen dances, but those memories will fade faster than they should. She leaves behind Tina McMiller, a mother forced to bury her daughter while simultaneously raising her grandson. Tina, who should be enjoying her later years, now parents again through a fog of grief, trying to be strong enough for 2 generations while her own heart is shattered. Romeca's extended family, cousins like Ciardra Bay's, aunts, uncles, nieces, all carry the weight of her absence. The family gatherings she organized will continue, but with a gaping hole where her laughter used to be. What she'd overcome makes her loss even more devastating. Working-class roots that taught her resilience. Single motherhood that demanded everything she had. Nursing school while juggling work shifts. Braiding hair on weekends for extra cash. She was climbing out, step by grueling step, fighting against systemic barriers that make success exponentially harder for Black mothers navigating Southside Chicago. Her final Instagram post from September 28, 2023, captures who she was. Happiest 5th birthday to my amazing, smart, attentive and caring baby boy. A mother celebrating her son. Her pride radiating through every word. Ciardra said it best. She was my cousin, my sister, her light won't dim. The glue that held us laughing through hard times. Romeca's story exposes themes that extend far beyond one tragic morning in Chicago. First, domestic entanglements turn deadly. Custody disputes aren't just paperwork and court dates. They're emotional minefields where jealousy festers, where possessive exes refuse to let go, where co-parenting becomes psychological warfare. When you add weapons to that volatile mix, the results can be fatal. Romeca tried to navigate this minefield with grace, but grace doesn't stop bullets. Second, the gun violence epidemic ravaging Chicago. Over 300 homicides by fall 2025. Easy access to weapons means conflicts that used to end with words or fists now end with funerals. School zones, places that should be sanctuaries, have become sites of execution. Children who should feel safe arriving for classes now witness their parents' murders on sidewalks. Third, justice system failure. The speed with which Johnson was released speaks volumes about how cases involving Black women are deprioritized. When victims are Black mothers from working-class neighborhoods, investigations stall. Evidence goes missing. Killers walk free. The system protects some lives more vigorously than others, and that disparity kills. Fourth, the motherhood trap. Romeca's forgiving nature, her willingness to keep peace for her son's sake, made her vulnerable. She prioritized his well-being over her own safety, maintaining contact with people who posed real danger. It's a trap countless mothers fall into, sacrificing boundaries because it's better for the kids. Finally, systemic barriers. Single Black mothers navigate economic strain, lack of community resources, pervasive violence and institutional racism, all while raising children and chasing dreams. Their quiet heroism goes unseen until tragedy forces the world to pay attention. If Romeca's story teaches us anything, it's these critical lessons. 1. Set firm boundaries even in co-parenting. Your safety matters more than keeping the peace. If someone exhibits possessive or threatening behavior, distance yourself immediately. Your child needs you alive more than they need you playing nice with a dangerous ex. 2. Document threats. Create paper trails. Report incidents to police even if they seem minor. Build a record that can protect you legally and physically. 3. Community support matters, but earlier intervention is crucial. Check on loved ones trapped in toxic situations. Don't wait until tragedy to act. Ask direct questions. Offer concrete help. 4. Demand accountability from systems that fail victims. The family's ongoing fight shows why we can't let cases go cold. Public pressure forces action. 5. Advocate for gun violence prevention. Schools and everyday places shouldn't be death zones. Support legislation that addresses root causes and restricts access to weapons in volatile situations. So let me ask you, how does someone shoot a mother in the face at a school drop-off, in front of witnesses, and walk free the same day? Think about that for a moment. Multiple people saw what happened. A woman lay dead on a sidewalk outside an elementary school. Children were nearby. The evidence was fresh. The suspect was apprehended within hours. And yet, no charges were filed. She went home that night while Romeca went to the morgue. Was this a justice system overwhelmed by Chicago's violence? A city so drowning in homicides that they'd become numb to them? Or is this evidence of something darker? How black women's lives are systematically devalued, how their murders are deprioritized, how their deaths are treated as somehow less urgent than others? And what about Carlos Way? Should he face accountability for stoking the flames that led to this tragedy? He created this toxic triangle. His possessive behavior kept tension simmering. He was there when the confrontation erupted, and then he fled the scene. Where's his responsibility in all of this? And Quadajah Holly Johnson, was this premeditated murder, or did she snap under the weight of her own pain and jealousy? Does motive matter when the result is a child without a mother? Does understanding why someone kills make the killing any less devastating? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear from you. Have you dealt with a toxic custody situation where jealousy and possessiveness turned everyday interactions into battlegrounds? How did you protect yourself and your children? Do you think Chicago police failed Romeca by releasing Johnson without charges? What would you have done if you were the investigating detective? What would justice actually look like in this case? Is arrest and prosecution enough, or does justice require addressing the systemic failures that made this tragedy possible? But beyond the debate, I need to say something directly. If you or someone you know is trapped in domestic conflict, if there's possessiveness, escalating arguments, threats, or violence, don't wait for tragedy. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Your life is worth protecting. Your children need you alive. And if you have a painful, personal story that needs to be told, one where the system failed you, where justice never came, where your voice was silenced, DM us. You might be featured on Whispers of the Criminal Mind. Sometimes the only way to force change is to refuse to let these stories stay buried. This is Whispers of the Criminal Mind, where we uncover the truths behind crimes that shake communities to their core. Romeca's story isn't just a headline you scroll past. It's not just another statistic in Chicago's violence epidemic. It's a call to action. For her son, who's growing up without his mama's voice, without her notes in his lunchbox, without her cheering at his school performances. For Tina, who's raising a grandson while drowning in grief for her daughter. For every black mother navigating streets where violence lurks in the most ordinary moments. School drop-offs, grocery store runs, daily routines that should be safe but aren't. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss these stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because Romeca's light deserves to reach beyond Chicago's South Side. Her story deserves to spark conversations, demand accountability, and maybe, just maybe, save someone else's life. As of October 2025, no charges have been filed in Romeca Meeks Blackman's murder. But her family isn't giving up. And neither should we. I'm your name, and this is Whispers of the Criminal Mind. Stay safe, stay aware, and keep fighting for justice. We'll see you in the next one.